You guys, Erin here, back with another moon update for you. I'm going to be talking about the full moon we've got coming up here in the sign of Libra. But before I get into that, I thought I would make somewhat of an announcement, or we can consider it an invitation. See, what we've got going on is we already had one new moon in Aries a couple weeks ago, and we're actually going to have a second new moon in Aries coming up in a couple weeks. And instead of me putting out another new moon in Aries video, although let me be clear, the energies will definitely be different. The first new moon in Aries is at 0 degrees. The next one's going to be at 29 degrees Aries. And of course, other celestial bodies have moved around. But still, I thought it would be really fun to put on somewhat of a astrology Zoom party, and you're all invited. Okay, so with that, we could have like an interactive conversation. Of course, we can talk about the new moon in Aries and how I work with the moon cycles and that sort of thing. But I'd also be here to answer any questions. You know, if you've got questions about astrology that you want to ask me, I love answering questions. So I thought that would be really fun. And not only that, but I could get to know some of you. And on that note, I don't know if everyone realizes this, but you don't have to have your video on. When you join a Zoom call, you could just leave the video part off if you're a little shy and you don't want your face on there. But you can also, you know, if you don't trust that or something, you can also just put a little piece of tape over your video. I do have a few, but some clients that don't want their face to be seen on the video. So, and that's perfectly fine. I respect that. So there's that. Okay, so if you would like to join this Zoom party, then all you got to do is send me an email at erinwageastrology@gmail.com and put in the subject of that email Zoom party, and preferably put it in all capitals. So I certainly, you know, I don't want to miss your emails. So Zoom party for the subject. And then I will respond to that email sending you the Zoom link to join. Okay, so this Zoom party would be on Sunday, April 16th. And I'd say noon, 12 p.m. Pacific time. And I chose Sunday because most people have Sundays off, not everybody. And I hope this doesn't, you know, affect somebody who wants to come and you got to be at work on Sunday. I'm really sorry if that's the case. But most people do have Sundays off. And not only that, but I chose noon because then that kind of supports all different time zones. It's nothing totally absurd. I'm not having people over the UK join at 3 o'clock in the morning or something like that. So I really hope some of you do join. Another thing too, is that if this is something that seems fun to you and you would like for me to do more of this, please let me know. Please leave a comment, you know, below. If you're watching this on YouTube, please leave a comment and let me know if this is something you'd like to do more often. I think it sounds like fun. Okay, so there's that. Now, and also I will leave a link to my email address in the description. Okay, erinwageastrology@gmail.com. Okay, so what we've got coming up here is a full moon in the sign of Libra. Now, this takes place on Wednesday, April 5th. It peaks at 9:34 p.m. Pacific time. So with that said, if you are over in the UK or on the East Coast, then this would actually be taking place on April 6th for you. Okay, now, as with any full moon, this is the peak of a growth cycle, okay? A growth cycle that began approximately 6 months ago when we had a new moon in the sign of Libra. Over these 6 months, it was last September when we had that new moon in Libra. Over these 6 months, we've all been experiencing an opportunity for growth that is related to this sign of Libra. Now, this is a time to honor that growth, okay? Now, this is also a time as soon as that moon starts to wane. And what I mean by that is, okay, so the full moon peaks at 9:34 p.m. Pacific time. By 9:35, the moon is starting to wane. It's starting to get smaller. So to stay in the natural flow of things, or to kind of let things go with grace, that is the time to let go of any of this Libra energy you may have picked up on that is not serving you. Okay, so in this recording, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down this sign of Libra for you so you know what you're working with here. And I'm also going to pull up the chart and show you some other prominent astrological forces that we're receiving at the time of this full moon. And there really is a lot. There's stuff that involves finances, there's stuff that involves emotions, stuff that involves taking action, all kinds of things going on. So I'm excited to pull that up. But I'm also going to be talking about certain parts of the body that are ruled by the sign of Libra, because these parts of our body become more sensitive when the moon transits through Libra, especially when it's a full moon in the sign of Libra. I'll also be mentioning some herbs that could potentially support these parts of our body. And I will also be mentioning some gemstones that really resonate well with this sign of Libra. Now, before I actually really get rolling with that, let me just give you this. Anytime we have a full moon, and I've been doing this for over 7 years now, anytime we have a full moon, I pull out my journal, I write down the growth that I'm grateful for that's related to the sign the moon's transiting through, and I write down what I want to let go of. And for those of you who are a little more advanced, I feel like some of you are starting to get into the rhythm of this, you can apply this to your own natal chart. If you know approximately what time you were born, you can see which area of your life this Libra energy manifests through. Okay, I'm talking about the houses here. Could be coming through your house of career, your house of relationships, your house of communication, your house of karma, your house of money, all these different areas of your life that it could be coming through. And that's, when I'm writing my journal, I apply it to the area of my life that moon is transiting through. And of course, I apply it to the energy of the sign. And then I take the gemstones that resonate well, again, with the sign the moon is transiting through, and I put those gemstones on top of my journal. Okay, now I would not be continuing to do this after 7 years if it did not benefit my life. Okay, and I also get a lot of really, really good messages from friends and from clients and from family who have been, putting this stuff into action here, like taking advantage of learning how to work with the moon cycles. And they've had some really good results. I can't go into detail, but I just had some really great messages come through last week that were thanking me for showing them how to work with this kind of energy. Okay, so there's that. Now, this sign of Libra, it's what we call the cardinal air sign. Now, when I say cardinal, I'm talking about force. Okay, all the cardinal signs, which are Libra, Aries, Cancer, and Capricorn, they represent when we enter into a new season. Okay, so with that, it's like it projects us into a new kind of energy, basically. It comes with a force. So Libra does come with a little force. In the element of air, this has a lot to do with intellect. The sign of Libra can definitely be intellectual. My very best friend from childhood is a Libra, and she always did really well in school. But on the other hand, this is such a fascinating energy because Libra can also be a very chill, laid back energy. Okay, it actually represents, the sign of Libra represents when the sun is setting. Okay, and a lot of that has to do with the balance that comes with the sign of Libra. And I say that because when the sun is on the horizon, it's like it's halfway point between over earth and under earth, and that represents the balance that comes with the sign of Libra. In fact, the motto for the sign of Libra is I balance. Okay, it's represented by the scales. And with that, this is such a trippy energy, but it's also, it's really neat because the scales can represent fairness and justice and wanting things to be fair. A lot of people, Libra people, when they're children, they find themselves being mediators sometimes for their parents. But then as we get into adulthood, they tend to be good people that can see both sides of the story and not choose a side over, who they like better, whatever. They balance things out. Okay, but that balance and the fairness, the justice also has a lot to do with finding justice in the world. A lot of people have Libra energy in their natal chart, especially if they're Libra rising or if they got Libra energy coming through their 10th house. They're very drawn to work in the justice system. And unfortunately, I've seen it time and time again where they get into the justice system and they find out it's really not a justice system. It is actually really corrupt and they get really frustrated about it. But also that the balance, the fairness that comes with the scales has a lot to do with a partner. This is actually the sign of relationships and partnerships. It's ruled by Venus. Okay, Venus is kind of the influencer of what we are attracted to, what we love. Okay, so with that, this relationship energy, it doesn't have to only apply to our romantic partner. It can very much be applied to any kind of partnership, whether it's a business partnership or a best friend, or if it's something along if you're somebody who takes clients, or if you're a doctor and you take patients, or if you have some kind of service that you provide, the people who come to you as clients or customers or patients, whatever it is, they fall into the category of Libra for you. Okay, so this could be a time to think about this. How have you grown in the ways in that relationship, in that partnership? Have you been working on, this is coming through your third house. If you got Libra ruling your third house, which is the house of communication, maybe you've been working on communication skills with that partner. And this is a time to honor yourself for that. But on that same token, if you, a lot of times people who have a heavy dose of Libra energy in their natal chart, they have a tendency to kind of put a little too much energy towards a partner and forgetting to put that energy towards themselves. Okay, now there's a really good opportunity going on right now between the sun and Jupiter over here in Aries and Chiron, and the moon over here in Libra. They're opposite each other. That polarity going on gives you a really good opportunity to try and balance that out. And if you have been putting too much energy towards a partner, which there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes we got to do that. Sometimes there's something going on with the partner and we got to give them a little extra attention. But if you're finding that you're maybe exhausting yourself from that, as soon as this moon starts to wane, that's a time to let some of that go. Okay. And bring it, hold that energy back in for yourself. Okay. So I hope that made sense. Now, also being ruled by Venus has a lot to do with beauty. Okay, this sign can be very much associated with art, especially like the creative arts, things that have to do with plays or something where people are up on stage. And going back to the Libra risings or Libra in the 10th house, this is another thing. It's like they either want to go into the justice system or they want to be an actress. They want, they want to be in front of the camera. They want to be up on stage somewhere, or an actor, whatever it is, that sort of thing. That's very much related to this sign of Libra. Has a lot to do with beauty. So that's another thing too. Maybe you've been working on beautifying yourself or making yourself just a little more attractive. Okay. Also, charm. The sign of Libra is very, very charming. Maybe that's something you've experienced some growth with. If that's the case, give yourself a little pat on the back, because this is the time to honor that growth. But again, on the other hand, if you're somebody who's kind of become obsessed with beauty and, you can't stand to put yourself, out to be seen unless you're looking extremely beautiful. If that's the case, as soon as this moon starts to wane, it's time to let some of that go so you can live a happier, healthier life. Okay, so there's that. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull up the chart so we can go through some of the other astrological forces we are receiving at the time of this full moon. And for those of you who are new to my recordings, I work with geocentric Western astrology. So with that said, we put Earth right here in the middle of this thing. This is a snapshot of the tropical zodiac at the time of this full moon. And these right here, these are the symbols for the celestial bodies out here. Okay, so here's Mars, here's Venus, here's Uranus, here's the moon. These little symbols right here, which are technically called glyphs, are the glyphs for the zodiac signs that these things are going to be beaming through onto Earth at the time of this full moon. And for those of you who are a little more advanced, don't pay attention to the houses because this is based on my location. Okay, we're all going to be experiencing, here's the moon at 16 degrees Libra. Okay, this is right here is a symbol for Libra. And in fact, hopefully you can see this if you're not on a super tiny device or with a little screen, but the glyph for Libra, it's a little bit bigger right here. The horizontal line, that represents the horizon. And then the curved part that's going off, that represents the sun setting. Okay, at least that's what I've been told. Of course, I have no way of proving really anything I'm saying, but that's what I've been taught, is that glyph really can have a lot to do with that sun setting. Okay, now the moon at 16 degrees Libra. All right, 16 degrees. This puts us in something called the second decan of the Libra energy, which actually gives it a little twist of Aquarius energy as well, which that can be really good. I will say some people might have a very busy mind around the time of this full moon. Again, so much of this depends on your own natal chart, but there can be a tendency for overthinking things with this much of the air element going on, although it can also activate genius with a little twist of Aquarius energy coming through here. And not only that, but if you have your own natal moon or sun near 16 degrees Libra or Aquarius, then this is kind of an extra special full moon for you. Okay, you've really developed, really meditate on that, because you've probably experienced a pretty prominent growth experience. Okay, so hope that made sense. Now we're going to shoot on over here and talk about the sun, which is, this is the sun where my mouse is moving. This right here is the glyph to represent the sign of Aries. The sun is at 16 degrees Aries. Anytime we have a full moon, it means the sun and the moon are exactly opposite each other. I mean, I think that's plays a big role in why full moons are so intense, because we got the two brightest lights in the sky up there kind of facing each other. Okay. So, and Luna's in her fullest form. By the way, the moon really in and of herself, she rules our emotions and our moods. That's why full moons for some people can be very intense and be very emotional. And not only that, but there can be a very strong tendency to feel each other, picking up on each other's emotions, which can be lovely, but can also something you might want to be careful with. Make sure you're not in a toxic environment, like with toxic people, that sort of thing. Okay. So 16 degrees Aries. Aries is the warrior. Aries is ruled by Mars. Aries is the aggressor. Hopefully you saw my new moon in Aries, my last new moon in Aries video, because this is a time to be taking action. Aries is the cardinal fire sign that supports taking action. Now, that's kind of an extra big deal right now because the sun is very close to Jupiter, which is right here. Anything Jupiter touches, he expands it. He's the great expander. It's like he's making it a bigger deal. So this is a really good time to take after whatever it is you want to go after. Go after it. I will say this, though. Again, everything depends on your own natal chart. If you've got, say, Saturn in Aries near 16 degrees Aries, or say the South Node near 16 degrees Aries, you might not be feeling super energized right now, because that stuff would kind of take away from that Aries cardinal energy. So again, it's so beneficial to get familiar with your natal chart. And if you want to schedule a reading, please just visit aaronweedastrology.com. You can schedule straight through my website. If you get a reading with me, you get the video recording, and you can always go back and look to see what anything is going on astrologically and apply it to your own natal chart. Okay, so also what we've got here going through the sign of Aries is Chiron. We've talked about this plenty of times. Chiron's been in Aries, I can't remember the year, probably 2018 or something like that. But Chiron is the wounded healer, okay? Going through the sign of Aries, Aries is the sign of self. I really can't say it enough. This is a really good time to be working on healing ourselves. And I've been saying that for a couple of years now, but it's amplified when it's next to the sun and Jupiter. It's like, let's go, let's take after this. Let's take after the energy of healing ourselves in a warrior type way. Okay, now this right here is Mars. Okay, now as I just mentioned, Mars is Aries ruler. He rules our physical drive. Mars is dominant energy. It's aggressive energy. Rules our adrenaline. This is what gets us going to do what we got to do. And Mars just moved into the sign of Cancer, which Cancer is a very emotional and sensitive energy. The motto for the sign of Cancer is I feel, okay? It's a nurturing energy. It's a receptive energy, and it has a lot to do with emotions. So with that said, a lot of people, again, so much of this depends on your own natal chart, but if you've got something prominent, say you've got your own natal sun or moon, or even Mars in Cancer, that you might be experiencing over the next week or two, or a couple of weeks, whatever it is, when it depends on where this thing is in your own natal chart, but it'll activate emotions. It'll trigger maybe even aggressive emotions. It'll heat up emotions. Okay. Now that sounds terrible, but here's the thing with this really great energy, actually, because this right here is Saturn going through Pisces. Pisces is another emotional and sensitive energy. All the water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, they're all associated with the emotions. Okay. So Saturn is the bringer of reality. Saturn wants to crack the whip on practicality and wants to teach us a lesson. He is the bringer of wisdom. And with that wisdom usually comes a pretty tough lesson. But basically what I'm getting at here is that, yeah, okay, emotions get revved up. But then we've got Saturn that says, whoa, take it down a notch. Saturn does constrict. He makes things cold, okay? He brings them, again, down to this like level of limitations. And so it's like he's limiting that aggressive emotion of Mars and wants us to learn the lesson. What is the lesson we need to learn from this very emotional experience? And moving forward over here, and the reason I'm putting so much emphasis on this is because there's this blue line that goes from here to here. That's a trine. Basically, Mars and Saturn are having a harmonious conversation, and they're having a harmonious conversation with this guy over here, the South Node going through Scorpio. That's what this blue triangle is. This is a grand water trine. Now, the South Node, this is what takes energy out, especially going through the sign of Scorpio. Scorpio rules the excretory system and wants to flush things out, okay? So to wrap this up with this grand water trine with Mars in Cancer, Saturn in Pisces, and South Node in Scorpio all harmonizing together, it's like I'm circling Mars because you got to feel it. No escapism here. This is really a time to feel the emotions and then learn the lesson and let it go. It's like you got to feel it to heal it and then let it go. Okay. I hope that makes sense. That really is not something we get to experience all the time. So there's that. Now let's jump on over all this Taurus energy going on here. Wow. Okay. So Taurus, this is a lot to interpret here. And again, keep in mind that this is this is something that's going to depend on your own natal chart, because for some people, especially if you're an Aries rising and say you've got, it depends on your chart, but maybe you've got Aries rising with Venus in your second house. Wow. You might be experiencing a little increase in your income. Okay. And the reason I say that, because again, Taurus it's really the sign of money. It's the sign of your own money and how you value that money, how hard you work for it. And not only that, but your material possessions, what you decide to spend that money on. And the reason I keep mentioning Aries rising is because then that would really put Taurus in the house of money, possessions, and values. Okay, so let's start with Mercury. Personally, I like Mercury in Taurus. This is not like an exalted placement or anything, but I like it because so many people are walking around crazy busy minds these days, like super, everything's buzzing, everything's going so fast. We're just exposed to all this technology. Well, Mercury has a lot to do with that. Mercury really has a lot to do with the function of our mind. Okay. There's more to, he's the messenger of the gods. He has so much to do with our communication skills. He's got to stay organized in our mind. Taurus goes slow and steady. It's the fixed earth sign. So that's why I like Mercury in Taurus, because it slows that busy mind down. And right here is the North Node, very close to Mercury, kind of making that a little more prominent. In some ways, this could be really nice to tap into this and to slow the mind down. Okay, but also moving forward here, this right here is something called the part of fortune, or sometimes called the lot of fortune. And this right here is Uranus, and this right here is Venus. All right, let's start with Venus. Okay, Venus, first of all, she loves to be in the sign of Taurus because she rules the sign of Taurus, and Venus loves things that are extravagant in the sign of Taurus. Okay, and by the way, this can also have a lot to do with food. I do recommend, even though a full moon is generally a good time to enjoy a good meal, because that's the moon's in the fullest form, not after the full moon, but leading up to the full moon is a good time, again, generally speaking, for the most part. As a collective, keep this in mind. A full moon, when we're going up to the full moon, that's a time to kind of nourish the body. And the sign of Taurus loves to nourish the body. This might increase some people's appetites, especially for sweets, because Venus really rules sugar, and she loves sugar, especially when she's in the sign of Taurus. But Venus also loves money. Okay. And what I mean by that, I don't mean greed at all. What I'm talking about is Venus understands the value of working hard to obtain, the financial abundance so that we can live more comfortably and have nice things, that sort of thing. Venus in Taurus does that. Now, next to Venus, this right here is Uranus, which Uranus is like spasmodic, rules technology. Uranus, I've been talking about Uranus going through Taurus for a couple of years now, a few years. Uranus is bringing very abrupt and revolutionary changes to the monetary system. Okay, that's Uranus's job. He rules over technology, and he wants a revolutionary change. He wants what is old to go out and what's new to come in. Okay, so we're seeing a lot of major changes involving how our financial system works. Okay, there's crashes going on, all kinds of things. But especially with this part of fortune here, which is like where we can receive fortune. Okay. This is a really good time to tap into how basically this Uranus energy it's not going to allow things to stay the same. And I could be totally wrong. I admit I could be totally wrong, but I really do think that we're going into a cashless society, not overnight. But if I had to take a guess, I'd say maybe 10 years or so. And that's hard, like for a lot of people. And I get that. I'm not saying I support a cashless society. I will say that I feel very strongly that cash is basically valueless. Let's say, if there was some kind of a major event that happened, money very quick, it's just a piece of paper. It's just a green piece of paper and is really not backed by anything. That's a whole nother can of worms. I'm not even going to go there, but this is taking us into a new opportunity where money can be made. Okay. If we're willing to flow with the changes and maybe entertain the possibility of digital currencies, especially if we can get some genius to really figure out how to decentralize that so that banks don't have their sticky fingers on everything. This kind of transit is a really good time to maybe set yourself up, start, trying to learn about new ways to make money, that sort of thing. And also a really good reminder that things that won't lose value, things like precious metals, silver, copper, gold, platinum, precious stones, even semi-precious stones. It doesn't matter if it's 400 years from now. I feel confident in saying those things are still going to hold some value. Okay. The metal's conductive. It's important. The gemstones do all kinds of wonderful things. And I'm not just talking about from a spiritual perspective. I'm talking about from a scientific and mechanical perspective. So recognizing that maybe it might be a good idea, and I'm not offering financial advice. That is not what I'm doing. Basically, what I'm talking about here is what I will be doing is letting go of some cash to spend it on something that is not going to lose value. At least it's not going to lose all of its value. That's what I see there. And for some people, this could be a tragic transit regarding finances. And for some people, it could be wonderful. Okay, so there's that. Briefly, I will touch on Pluto. Okay, so Pluto, as we've talked about so many times, Pluto's been going through the sign of Capricorn since 2008, creating major destruction. That's Pluto's job. He's got to destroy, but to create a more sort of powerful thing than what was there before. Also, Pluto reveals secrets. Pluto pulls things up from the underworld for us all to see. Pluto reveals dark, scary things that nobody wants to see. Sign of Capricorn really does rule over the structure of our civilization and also rules over things like government. Okay, we've seen some extremely powerful transformational processes regarding our government and authoritarian establishments and the structure of our civilization. And Pluto's not quite done with that Capricorn energy yet. Pluto just moved into Aquarius, but is only going to be there till May, I think, and then is going to retrograde back into Capricorn. He's going to do that twice between now and December of 2024. Pluto's going to be doing this dance. With that said, I kind of feel like Pluto's already done some damage through that Capricornian energy. And I'm not talking about if you're a Capricorn, I'm talking about as a collective here. Although I will say, if you've got something near the 28th, 29th degree of Pluto, you probably have had some pretty serious stuff going on in your life. But 2023 is kind of putting us in limbo. It's kind of like not much really important stuff. I mean, of course, there's always important stuff going on, but it's more when Pluto retrogrades back into Capricorn and then hits the 29th degree again. 2024 is going to be a very transformational year as far as I'm concerned. I mean, considering we're going to have an election, that's going to involve government, obviously. I think we're going to see a whole heck of a lot more secrets being revealed. We've already seen plenty. We see all kinds of stuff being revealed that was hidden from the public eye. Okay, and some people have seen more than others, but I do feel like more and more people are starting to see some real corruption going on there. And now Pluto will be basically like he's starting his journey through Aquarius now. And he's going to continue his journey through Aquarius except for the little retrogrades back into Capricorn briefly. He's going to continue through the sign of Aquarius all the way till 2044. Now that's a 21-year transit through the sign of Aquarius. This sign of Aquarius, it rules humanitarianism. It rules the people for the people. Okay. It also rules technology. I think we're going to see some probably slightly frightening things that occur with technological advances. Of course, some wonderful things, but also some, the whole AI stuff, the artificial intelligence, all those sorts of things, but also probably some disturbing or a little bit of chaos going on with the people for the people. But towards the end of that transit, and again, of course, I could be wrong, but this is the way I see this. Towards the end of that transit, like 2040, between 2040 and 44, I think we might start to see the people taking their power back. Okay, so this is something, in my opinion, to be celebrated, although it can be quite turbulent. In the end, I think it could be a really good thing. Okay, Neptune going through Pisces. That's the last one I'll talk about here. Neptune going through Pisces. We've talked about this a bunch. Neptune rules the sign of Pisces, loves to be here, very spiritual, very mystical energy, but it's also very unearthly and can create delusions. Okay, there's a lot of delusions going on out there. So it's a really good idea. I personally, I'm kind of glad about, even though I loved Saturn going through Aquarius, I'm kind of excited about Saturn entering into Pisces, because I'm hoping he'll bring the hard reality in to some delusional energies that are going on. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there. Now let's move on to body parts. Okay, so the sign of Libra rules the kidneys. Now, again, these parts of our body become more sensitive, especially when it's a full moon in Libra. For kidneys, I really was starting out with something called Chanca piedra, which is, I believe it transfers into stone crusher, as in it can break down kidney stones. It's also very detoxifying. And I thought I would share this because I am incredibly impressed with this stuff. It's called RUG, remove, it stands for remove unwanted guests. You can get this. I'll leave a link for this. You can get this at the David Wolf Shop website, but this stuff has the Chanca piedra in it, but it also has other things to help pull, not just through the kidneys, but also it's got milk thistle to detox the liver, through the intestines, all these things. But I can tell that there's some very high quality stuff going on, especially the Chanca piedra. My generation with Pluto in Libra, we are a generation that really should be taking very good care of our kidneys. Pluto can create some, not to say that everybody's gonna have bad kidneys in my generation, but we just are a generation that should be taking care of our kidneys regarding that particular placement in our charts. And this rug not only has been helping to clear the kidneys out and keep them clean, but also when I'm taking it regularly, my brain functions better. It really does make a difference. It really has brought some clarity. And I've been doing that stuff off and on for a few years now. I really, really like it. I'm glad I finally am putting it out there in the public. But also, like I said, Chanca piedra to break things down, but also parsley. Parsley can be really good, gentle for detoxifying. I really like to take raw parsley and simmer it in some really good high quality water, preferably freshly harvested spring water that's been put through the ceramic filter. If not everybody has that, that's okay. But simmering parsley in some really good water and drinking that water can be super detoxifying for the kidneys. And then also one more to mention here is goldenrod is really good for healing the tissues, the tissue in the liver, in the kidneys. So that's my thoughts there. But also the sign of Libra rules the lumbar area. Okay, that's another thing. My generation, a lot of people have lumbar pain. And for lumbar pain, personally, I've had really good experiences with something called royal fern. Okay, so, and by the way, I'm not a doctor. I do not claim to be a doctor. I'm not offering you medical advice. I'm just giving you guys things that I have learned, not just from the schools that involve the medical astrology. Some of you have heard me talk about Judith Hill's Academy for Astrological Medicine that I've been attending for a couple of years now and studying under Judith for about 6 years. The medical astrology stuff, of course, I've learned a ton through that, but I've also really applied myself into learning from nutritionists and going to other academies for that, the Mind Body Institute, all sorts of things to learn how to keep my body, functioning well. Okay. I put too much damage to my body in my younger years. And so now I got to make up for it. Okay. So, but again, I'm not a doctor. You might want to check in with your healthcare practitioner before dabbling into any of these things. Okay. So gemstones, this right here is opal, black opal. There's also white opal. They're both very Libra energy. I would say that for the most part, I think opal is a stone that could benefit pretty much everybody. You might want to be a little careful, just feel into it if you've got Libra ruling either your 6th house or your 8th house. But opal overall is a lovely stone. The black opal is said to kind of be more targeted towards root chakra work, whereas white opal is more towards crown chakra work. But opal is also said to be really good for things like balancing hormones. Of course, balance, it's a Libra stone. Okay, but obviously not everybody has an opal. That's okay. We got plenty other stones to work with here. One I'm going to mention here that I've pulled up in several of my videos this year is blue kyanite, which is such a beautiful stone. Resonates with a lot of zodiac signs, but specifically with Libra, it can be very protective, but also soothing. Okay, it's a nice, it could kind of, especially for the emotional grand water trine that's going on, blue kyanite could be really good. Another one to mention here is black tourmaline. I'm sure you guys have seen me pull this stone up plenty of times. Black tourmaline is very, very protective. Every time I have to go into like a airport or a situation I don't want to be in where there's all kinds of weird energies going on, I always carry my black tourmaline. And one more I'm going to mention here, this right here is moonstone, which moonstone is absolutely lovely, and it definitely resonates well with the sign of Libra. But I will say this, and by the way, I also got some moonstone earrings on that are from my very best friend who is also a Libra. But the moonstone is lovely if you've been practicing on how to manage emotions. If you're somebody who's wrapped up in a turbulent emotional situation right now, a breakup, or your pet died, or whatever it is, something that's horrible, I don't really recommend working with moonstone because it can enhance those emotions. But if you're somebody, even if you are in kind of a chaotic emotional situation, but you've been, working on meditation and really practicing how to process those emotions in a healthy way, then moonstone can actually provide a little support with that. Okay, so there's that, especially moonstone on a full moon. You might want to just be a little bit careful with that, but it is also, again, it really resonates well with this sign of Libra. Libra is not really an emotional energy. That doesn't mean that if you're a Libra, you're not emotional. That's not what that means at all, because there's so much more to the natal chart. But the sign of Libra, again, it tries to balance things out. It tries to, not get swept away in the emotions. It just wants to make sense of things. Okay, so there's that. I'm going to leave that there. If you would like to schedule an astrology reading, please visit erinwageastrology.com. You can schedule straight through my website. If you go to my website on a phone or like a tablet, an iPad or something, then what you're going to see is 3 small lines at the top. That's a menu bar. If you click there, it'll say book online. So you can schedule straight through there. And I do hope to hear from some of you. Again, please leave me a comment. If you've made it this far in the video, congratulations, but please do leave me a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are on this astrology Zoom party. And again, I do hope to hear from some of you. All right, you guys, until next time, namaste to all of you.